The cowardly Prime Minister Keir Starmer has once again shirked responsibility, taking the day off and skipping PMQs altogether. Instead, he threw Angela Rayner into the firing line, leaving her to stammer through tough questions about the farmers' protests. In today's video, we'll watch as Rayner faces relentless ridicule, while the Labour Party is accused of deceiving farmers. And we'll also cover some other hot topics in British politics. Before we dive in, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.
Couldn't even get the money out the door for farmers, failing to spend over 300 million on farming budgets. The farmers know they ruined it for them, and that's why we're in government and they're not.
Well, perhaps the Right Honourable Lady thinks that everyone came to London yesterday to thank the government. Let's look at the facts. A typical mid-sized 360-acre family farm in the constituency of my Right Honourable friend for Thirsk and Moulton. They've spoken to their accountant. Their new liability because of this government is £500,000. That's 12 years' worth of profit. When this generation passes away, that farm will become totally unviable, and it's just one of thousands and thousands of similar farms. It's clear the government hasn't got its facts right. The Central Association for Agricultural Valuers, the real experts in this field, say so. The NFU says so. They're shortly to publish a report showing that 75% of all commercial farms will fall above the threshold. If the government isn't going to reverse this terrible policy, will the Right Honourable Lady at least commit that there will be no further increases to inheritance tax and no further reductions to agricultural property relief or business property relief in this Parliament?
Well, Mr. Speaker, he talks about the facts, and I absolutely stand by the figures the government has set out. And the vast majority of estate owners will be totally unaffected. He wants to talk about the figures, Mr. Speaker. I will be crystal clear. The vast majority of estate owners will see no change and pay no tax on land passed on valued at £1 million. Couples can pass on £3 million, Mr. Speaker, tax-free, and those above the thresholds will pay only half the normal rate and can pay over 10 years interest-free.
This is just another part of the budget that's unravelling, Mr. Speaker. Everyone here and all the farmers at home will have heard there was no guarantee there. We know what that means. They're coming back for more. And even if the Honourable Lady had made a promise today, it wouldn't have been worth a fig. We know that the Environment Secretary, before the election, promised the farmers this wouldn't happen. Labour promises get broken. Let's put all of this into context. The Treasury says the family farms tax will raise on average £441 million a year. The Treasury also says that the public sector pay rises the government announced in July will cost £9.4 billion a year. That's over 21 times as much. Why does the government think that above inflation pay rises for the trade unions are worth so...
Order! Now then, I don't need any more from the second bench. Can I just say, please, less of it. We've had a bit of a run-in recently and I don't need to have any more. Right. Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think it's an audacity for the honourable gentleman to stand there and suggest in some way that Labour broke promises or raised taxes. I'll school the honourable gentleman. It was his government that raised taxes to the highest level for a generation. It was his government.
Sorry? We'll have less as well, unless you want to go and have a cup of tea. Have we heard any more? Is that it now? Yes or no? Absolutely, you're the one that was mouthing. I can't move my mouth yet. Well, I'm sorry, you must be able to do it like a ventriloquist dummy. Prime Minister.
It was his government that crashed the economy, that saw inflation rise to 1.1% and grow flatline. It was his government that spent the reserves 3 times over. I'll take no lessons from the honourable gentleman.
I'll explain. Fuck off!
I understand why the right honourable lady doesn't want to answer questions about the terrible choices the government have made. It's because the truth is ugly. The truth is that this is a punishment meted out to people who don't vote Labour. It's the same punishment meted out to parents who send their children to private schools. It's the same punishment meted out to the owners of small businesses terrified about national insurance contributions. And it's the same punishment meted out to pensioners who can't afford to pay their fuel this winter. Isn't it the truth, Mr. Speaker, that if you don't vote Labour, they don't care about you?
Switching to another hot topic, Keir Starmer, a deeply divisive figure in British politics, has once again sparked public outrage with his support for shocking decisions regarding the nation's military and defence. As public confidence in his leadership continues to erode, Starmer's enthusiastic backing for the use of Storm Shadow missiles to strike Russian territory has only fueled further criticism. Starmer, along with leaders like French President Emmanuel Macron, has pushed for the expanded use of these weapons, ignoring the risks of escalating conflict and the warnings of potential consequences. This is not just a display of narrow-mindedness, but also a glaring lack of responsibility for the dangers his decisions pose to both Britain and the wider world. Only hours after the UK's Storm Shadow missiles struck Marino, Kursk in Russia, Defence Secretary John Healey announced a shocking decision: a £500 million cut to the defence budget. This move includes cancelling 6 major programmes, such as the Army's primary drone fleet and key amphibious assault ships of the Royal Navy. Experts have described this as a catastrophic blow to Britain's defence capabilities, particularly at a time when national security threats are on the rise. James Cartledge, the Shadow Defence Secretary, lambasted the decision, saying, "This is the worst possible time to cut our defence capabilities." Meanwhile, former Defence Secretary Ben Wallace warned that such decisions would embolden Britain's adversaries, who might now perceive the nation as weak. The Storm Shadow strike came just a day after the US confirmed the use of its long-range ATACMS missiles to target Russian territory. Predictably, Moscow immediately threatened retaliation, including the potential launch of RS-26 intercontinental ballistic missiles aimed at Kiev. Rather than seeking de-escalation, the UK government, egged on by opportunists like Starmer, seems determined to fan the flames of conflict. Even US President Joe Biden, who had initially opposed the use of Storm Shadow missiles within Russian territory due to escalation concerns, was forced to relent under pressure from allies like Starmer and Ukrainian President Zelensky. The defence budget cuts are not just illogical, but a betrayal of those who have served in Britain's armed forces. Critical assets such as HMS Albion and HMS Bulwark, medium transport helicopters, and essential UAV systems are being retired with no replacements in sight. Ben Wallace starkly noted, "The Army's artillery will be blind without its drones. The Royal Marines have lost their command ships, and the armed forces have given up their vital medium-lift helicopters." This underscores the incompetence and lack of vision within the current government, with Starmer among its staunchest advocates. While the British public grapples with crises ranging from economic decline to growing security concerns, Starmer has chosen to back policies that endanger the country. His indifference to public opinion and the valid warnings from experts only further highlights his ineptitude as a leader. Starmer may wish to present himself as a champion of Ukraine and Western values, but the cost is Britain's safety and the trust of its people. Such an irresponsible politician does not deserve the support of voters, especially when the country urgently needs leaders capable of making sound decisions in times of crisis. Keir Starmer is not just ineffectual, he is a looming threat to Britain's future. As the world faces numerous challenges, placing trust in someone like him is a grave mistake. The public must recognise that to safeguard the nation's future, figures like Starmer must be removed from the political stage.